Hey there, lovely people. Welcome back to another Story Study Saturday. I'm Sammy, and I'm a writer who likes to learn about writing through reading and share what I learn with you. This week, I want to talk to you about people we meet on vacation, which I knew going into it had some drama around the title, because they're like, oh, they didn't even meet on vacation, and people were really upset about that. But if you actually read the story, the title makes complete sense for the characters, and I don't understand why people were so upset about it. If you don't know anything about people we meet on vacation, here's a quick summary for you. Poppy and Alex are as different of people as anyone can be, but after one carpool trip home from college, they become best friends for years, keeping their friendship strong with their yearly summer trip. Until one year, something goes wrong, and they don't see each other or speak for 2 years. Poppy finally takes it upon herself to fix everything in a 1-week-long summer trip. So let's get into my thoughts on this book. Not to spoil anything, because I don't think this is a spoiler, because it's kind of in the general, it's a love story, it's their friends, so friends to lovers, but I absolutely adore the tension that comes from friends to lovers, where they both think one side is completely unrequited. That is my favorite thing, where they're like, oh, the other person can't possibly feel the same way about me. There's no way. I don't want to ruin our friendship. And then they just both, it's my favorite thing. And this book does that amazingly. It has it to a T perfect. It also has a great use of a nonlinear timeline, where it feels like we don't need to be in the present so much as we need to be in the past, but the story is taking place in the present, and we need to know what happened in the past. The way that we're in the dark as to why they stopped talking or what happened 2 years ago prior to the present of the story keeps you hooked on every time you get a story from the past. And then as you get more stories from the past, you really dig into that friendship, romantic tension, and I adore it. And it really just gave a lot of emphasis to that. It even, during the flashback chapters where it's nonlinear, there were a lot of really, really great anecdotes that just perfectly paralleled and contrasted the guys that Poppy had dated to Alex. The way that it's done is, if you weren't already looking for it, you wouldn't see it, which is really, really great because the characters are not looking for it. Poppy's not actively comparing her boyfriends to her best friend. She's not doing that. But in her subconscious, she probably is. But she's not actively doing it, so you don't catch it. But because we know it's a love story between the two of them, we are actively doing it. And it's really, really nice to see it, and it's really, really great for them to not see it, because them not seeing it makes it more interesting to us as the readers. I also thought it was really interesting that Poppy and Alex had nothing in common besides caring about each other and knowing the true version of the other person. Some things that I think could be improved though, you know how every romance story has that necessary fight or big deal fight or a breakup or whatever it is. It's part of the template for this kind of story. It felt forced. Their required fight didn't feel like they would have actually had it had they not been in a romance story. It felt a little bit out of character and out of place, and bigger than it naturally would have been. I also was kind of disappointed by what happened to them 2 years ago when we find out. It felt like it was disappointing because of how built up it was by the time we got there, that when we find out what actually had happened, it just kind of landed flat. It wasn't this big deal that I expected it to be. It was just sort of a thing. And then a thing that led to 2 years of them not talking to each other. It just felt meh. Something that I also think could be improved, that you may have heard already, is that Poppy and Alex had nothing in common with each other except that they cared about each other. And I don't understand how that can work. I don't understand how, somebody's gonna have to give up so much just to, and it feels like if they had more, 3 things in common, maybe it would have been better. But there's so much sacrifice that's required for them to be in a relationship. But the epilogue made it so that my qualms were satisfied, but at the same time, were they? I just can't imagine in real life people who have literally nothing in common, fully opposite ends of the spectrum type of people being in a happy relationship. You have to have, if you don't, If you don't have anything in common, then what is there? I guess there's like, they've got chemistry and they've got like a history, but like, you know, what do you do? If you can't just go on like vacations and go do new things like you have been for the last decade, how do you friend? I don't know. I guess we didn't see enough of them in college. Like they mentioned it. And I think that would be closer to their adult lives, relationships. But all of what we saw of them was them tiptoeing around their feelings for each other on vacation. So it's just like curious to me how they can have nothing in common and make it work. I don't know. It might be fine. It's interesting. It's a choice for sure. So what can writers learn from this story? It is a very good example of a nonlinear timeline and using a nonlinear timeline to your advantage. I would say that this, in terms of nonlinearness, is right up there with The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, because they both do the same thing really, really well in very different ways for very different reasons, but they are both super impactful. And if you are wanting to write something in a nonlinear way, these would probably be the two books that I would recommend for that. It's also a good example of tension and release in a love story, where she built up all of this tension and all of this like relationship potential, and then we got it. It's a good payoff on this one, where some love stories just like they build up really, really well, and then it's just like, you're here you go, you made it. This one really felt like a celebration once you got there, once all of the tension built up. And it's also, I guess, a good example of relationship chemistry in a very extreme way, because, you know, Poppy and Alex don't have anything in common, but they've got massive chemistry and they are like great for each other. That's what they have. They have chemistry, and it's like, oh really, you believe it. You believe it the whole time. The only time that I stopped believing it was at the end, when I was like, how is this gonna work? They have nothing in common. The rest of the time I was like, oh my God, they're perfect for each other. They're the best. They're so cute. It's just one of those things. It's definitely a good example of building that chemistry between characters and having them balance off of each other and give and take in the conversations and the situations. They feel like real people, and they feel like real people who care about each other. And that's super important for a lot of different stories for a lot of different reasons, even if it's not a love story. But that is all that I've got for you today. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. If you have any books that you'd like me to check out and do a story study on, let me know in the comments down below. If you don't want to miss any of my uploads, hit that subscribe button. I am here every Saturday and Tuesday for Story Study Saturdays and Writing Tip Tuesdays. So I will see you guys on Tuesday.